It started with an email from an unknown sender. The subject line read, "Project Black Screen," and the message was brief yet intriguing. "We're looking for a team of paranormal investigators to delve into the world of black screen stories, a mysterious short film plagued by bizarre occurrences. If you're interested, meet us at the old warehouse on 5th and Main at midnight." I couldn't resist the opportunity. I've always been fascinated by the paranormal, and the promise of uncovering a truth was too great to pass up. As I arrived at the warehouse, I noticed a group of strangers gathered outside. They were all dressed in black, their faces obscured by shadows. The air was thick with an eerie atmosphere, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I approached one of them, a woman with piercing green eyes who introduced herself as Sarah. She explained that our team would consist of 5 members: myself, 2 investigators, and 2 experts in various fields. The plan was to spend 3 days investigating the film, gathering evidence, and trying to uncover the truth behind the strange events. "We'll be working with a team leader," Sarah continued, "who will guide us through the process." She handed me a card with a name and number on it. "His name is Alex, and he's been investigating black screen stories for years. He'll brief us on our first day and explain what we're getting ourselves into." I took the card, feeling a sense of trepidation mixed with excitement. I had no idea what lay ahead, but I was ready to face whatever challenges came our way. "All right, everyone," Sarah said, her voice low and commanding. "Let's get moving. We have work to do." I watched as the team leader, Alex, led us into the dimly lit warehouse. He handed out assignments and explained our roles in the investigation. Our 2 investigators, Jake and Emily, would be responsible for setting up equipment to capture evidence of paranormal activity. Dr. Patel, a renowned expert in parapsychology, would provide insight on the potential explanations behind the strange occurrences. And Sarah, the woman with piercing green eyes, would be our team's liaison with the outside world. I was tasked with documenting everything, every detail, every sound, every sight. As we began to set up our equipment, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. Every creak of the old warehouse seemed amplified. Every shadow cast by the flickering lights made me jump. It was as if the very atmosphere itself was alive and waiting for us to make a wrong move. I started my camera roll, capturing every movement, every expression on each of our faces. We worked in silence, our concentration focused on the task at hand. But I couldn't help but feel that we were being herded towards some unknown fate. And then, it happened. A faint noise echoed through the warehouse, a soft thud that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at the same time. Jake's eyes snapped towards me, his expression a mix of excitement and trepidation. "What was that?" he whispered. I shook my head, my heart racing in anticipation. "I don't know," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. But before we could do anything else, the noise stopped. The silence was oppressive, heavy with unspoken expectations. And then it started again. A slow, deliberate step, each one echoing through the warehouse like a death knell. As the night wore on, the step-by-step rhythm continued, growing louder and more insistent. It was as if someone or something was stalking us, toying with our nerves. I tried to focus on my equipment, but my eyes kept drifting back to Dr. Patel, who seemed transfixed by the sound. She would nod occasionally, her expression a mask of fascination, while Alex looked increasingly uneasy. "What's going on?" Emily whispered to Jake, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't know," he replied, his eyes fixed on the step. It was as if we were all trapped in some kind of twisted dance, with the step as our only guide. The rest of us exchanged nervous glances, but no one dared speak up. We were frozen, transfixed by the sound that seemed to be drawing closer. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, the step stopped. The silence was oppressive, heavy with unspoken expectations. It was as if we were waiting for something or someone. Alex finally broke the spell, his voice low and commanding. "All right, let's get back to work." But I couldn't shake off the feeling that we were being watched, that unblinking eyes were trained on us from the shadows. I kept glancing around the warehouse, but every time I thought I saw something moving, it vanished into thin air. The investigation continued, but our focus was no longer on the paranormal activity. It was on each other, on the fear that seemed to be growing inside us like a living thing. I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease that had settled over me. Every creak of the warehouse seemed amplified. Every shadow cast by the flickering lights made me jump. It was as if we were living in a dream world, one where reality was fragile and easily shattered. I decided to try and capture some evidence on camera, hoping to get to the bottom of what was happening. I set up my camera in a corner of the warehouse, pointing it at the wall where the step had started. As I waited for something to happen, I noticed that Dr. Patel seemed to be staring at something on her phone. She looked up, caught my eye, and quickly looked away. "What's wrong?" I asked her, but she just shook her head. "Nothing," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. I tried to focus on the camera feed, but my mind kept wandering back to Dr. Patel. What was she looking at? And why did she look so scared? I decided to try and get some more information out of her. "Hey, what's going on with you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. She hesitated, then leaned in close. "I've been studying the black screen stories," she whispered, "and I think I know what's happening." She pulled out a small notebook and flipped through the pages, stopping at a particular entry. "It says here that every time someone watches the film, they're drawn into its world." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What do you mean?" I tried to keep my voice steady, but Dr. Patel just shook her head. "I'm not sure," she admitted, "but I think we're in over our heads." As the night wore on, the steps seemed to grow louder, more insistent. It was as if it was calling to us, drawing us closer to some unknown fate. I felt a creeping sense of dread as I gazed at the camera feed, my eyes fixed on the blank screen that seemed to be staring back at me. The image was static, unchanging, yet somehow mesmerizing. It was as if the black screen stories had come alive, its presence seeping into our world like a cold, dark mist. I tried to shake off the feeling, telling myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But I couldn't help but feel that we were being pulled towards something, that the step was leading us deeper into the heart of the mystery. Dr. Patel seemed entranced, her eyes fixed on the screen as if she was seeing something that none of us could see. "What is it?" I asked her, my voice barely above a whisper. She didn't answer, her gaze still fixed on the screen. I tried to follow her gaze, but there was nothing to see. Just the blank, black surface of the screen staring back at me like an empty void. And then, without warning, the image flickered and went dark. The step stopped and the warehouse fell silent once more. But I knew that we weren't alone. Something had moved, something that lurked just beyond the edge of perception. I felt a cold breath on the back of my neck, and I knew that we were being watched. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, my heart pounding in my chest. The air was thick with anticipation, and I could feel the weight of the unknown pressing down on me. I looked around at my team, their faces set with determination. We were all in this together, united against whatever lay beyond the edge. We moved cautiously, our senses on high alert as we edged towards the screen. It seemed to be waiting for us, its blackness pulsing with a malevolent energy. I reached out a hand and touched the screen, feeling a jolt of electricity run through my body. The world around me began to distort, like a reflection in rippling water. It was then that I saw it, a doorway, opening into a realm beyond our own. I felt myself being pulled towards it as if by an unseen force. I turned to my team, my eyes wide with excitement and fear. "We have to go through it," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. They nodded, their faces set with determination. Together, we stepped forward into the unknown. As we passed through the doorway, I felt a sense of disorientation wash over me. The world around us was shifting, like sand beneath our feet. We found ourselves in a realm unlike any other, a place of twisted dreams and nightmares. The air was thick with the scent of decay and corruption. I looked around at my team, their faces pale with fear. We were alone here with no escape from the horrors that lurked within. And then I saw it, a figure standing in the shadows, watching us, waiting for us. Its presence seemed to fill the air, its malevolent energy suffocating me. I knew that we had to get out of there and fast. But as I turned to my team, I saw something that made my blood run cold. "They're not here," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. As I looked around frantically, I saw that Jake was missing. His camera was still rolling, but his figure had vanished into thin air. I called out for him, my voice echoing through the twisted realm, but there was no response. I was left alone with Dr. Patel, who seemed to be staring at something in front of her. She didn't flinch as I approached her, her eyes fixed on some point beyond me. I tried to shake her out of her trance-like state, but she just kept staring. "Dr. Patel, what's wrong?" I asked her again, my voice growing louder. But still, she didn't respond. I looked around frantically for any sign of Jake, but he was nowhere to be seen. It was as if he had never existed in the first place. I felt a surge of panic and fear. We were trapped in this twisted realm with no way out. And then I saw it. A shadowy figure lurking just beyond Dr. Patel's shoulder. It was tall and imposing, its presence seeming to fill the air. I tried to step back, but my feet seemed rooted to the spot. The figure began to move closer, its movements slow and deliberate. I could feel its eyes on me, boring into my skin like cold, dark needles. I tried to scream, but my voice was frozen in my throat. I knew then that we were doomed. We had stumbled into something that was beyond our understanding, and now we would pay the price. I was trapped in a world that was no longer my own. The shadows seemed to writhe and twist around me like living things. Dr. Patel's eyes were black as coal, her skin deathly pale. She spoke in a voice that was not her own, her words dripping with malevolent intent. I tried to escape, but the walls seemed to shift and distort, like a funhouse mirror reflecting my deepest fears. Every step I took led me further into the heart of madness. I saw things that no human should ever have to see: children screaming in terror, their bodies twisted and contorted in impossible ways. I saw couples embracing, their faces frozen in perpetual bliss. And I saw the black screen stories, its image seared into my brain like a branding iron. I was lost in a world of fractured reality, where nothing made sense and everything was wrong. The laws of physics were mere suggestions, the rules of sanity merely suggestions to be disregarded. I stumbled through this twisted landscape, searching for a way out. But every door I opened led only to more terrors, more horrors. Every step forward seemed to lead me further into the abyss. I knew then that we had crossed a threshold, and there was no going back. We were trapped in a world of perpetual nightmare, where the very fabric of reality was torn apart. I was consumed by a sense of despair, my mind shattered by the sheer horror of what I saw. And yet, even as I screamed, I knew that I would never be free. I was lost in a world of perpetual haze, where nothing made sense and everything was wrong. The air was thick with an otherworldly mist that seeped into my lungs, making it hard to breathe. I stumbled forward, my legs shaking beneath me like jelly. Every step felt like a struggle, as if the ground itself was trying to pull me under. I tried to call out for help, but my voice was drowned out by the cacophony of sounds that surrounded me. The black screen story seemed to be playing on repeat, its image seared into my brain like a branding iron. I saw it everywhere, on walls, on ceilings, even on the ground beneath my feet. It was as if the very fabric of reality had been torn apart and the darkness that lurked within was spilling out. I wandered through this desolate landscape, searching for a way out. But every path I took led me back to the same place, the edge of sanity, where the lines between reality and madness were blurred beyond recognition. I saw Dr. Patel again, her eyes black as coal, her skin deathly pale. She spoke in a voice that was not her own, her words dripping with malevolent intent. "You'll never escape," she said, her voice echoing in my mind like a curse. "You'll be trapped here forever, lost in the haze of your own sanity." I knew then that I was doomed. I would never find my way out of this twisted world, where the very laws of reality were twisted and distorted. I was consumed by a sense of despair, my mind shattered by the sheer horror of what I saw. And yet, even as I screamed, I knew that I would never be free. As I stumbled through the haze, I began to hear echoes of terror that seemed to come from all directions. The black screen stories seemed to be everywhere, its image seared into my brain like a branding iron. I heard whispers in my ear, tempting me with dark secrets and forbidden knowledge. I saw shadowy figures darting around the edges of my vision, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. I tried to run, but my legs were leaden with fear. Every step felt like a struggle, as if the ground itself was trying to pull me under. The echoes grew louder, more urgent, until I felt like I was being consumed by them. I was trapped in a world of perpetual nightmare, where the very fabric of reality was torn apart. I saw Dr. Patel again, her eyes black as coal, her skin deathly pale. She spoke in a voice that was not her own, her words dripping with malevolent intent. "You'll never escape," she said, her voice echoing in my mind like a curse. "You'll be trapped here forever, lost in the echoes of terror." I knew then that I was doomed. I would never find my way out of this twisted world, where the very laws of reality were twisted and distorted. I was consumed by a sense of despair, my mind shattered by the sheer horror of what I saw. And yet, even as I screamed, I knew that I would never be free. I took a step forward and then another until I was standing at the edge of the abyss. The ground dropped away beneath me, plunging down into darkness. I felt a rush of adrenaline as I peered over the edge, my heart pounding in my chest. The wind whipped through my hair, threatening to pull me off balance. But I stood firm, my eyes fixed on the void below. I took another step forward, and then another until I was standing at the very edge of the abyss. I felt a sense of exhilaration mixed with fear as I peered over the edge. The darkness seemed to swallow everything whole, leaving me feeling tiny and insignificant. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and let myself fall. I fell through the void, my stomach lurching with each twist and turn. The wind rushed past me, whipping my hair into a frenzy. I felt like I was flying, my senses heightened as I plummeted towards something, anything. I opened my eyes to find myself in a place beyond words, a place where the laws of physics were twisted and distorted, a place where the very fabric of reality was torn apart. I stumbled forward, my legs shaking beneath me. Every step felt like a struggle, as if the ground itself was trying to pull me under. I looked around, trying to take it all in. The sky above was a deep, burning crimson. The air was thick with an otherworldly energy that seemed to vibrate through every cell in my body. And then I saw her. Dr. Patel stood before me, her eyes black as coal, her skin deathly pale. She smiled at me, and I felt a chill run down my spine. I stared into Dr. Patel's eyes, and I knew that I was staring into the abyss. She reached out a hand, her fingers beckoning me closer. I felt a sense of inevitability wash over me, as if I was being drawn towards some unknown fate. "Come," she whispered, her voice like a sigh on the wind. "Let me show you the true meaning of madness." I took a step forward, and then another until I was standing before her. She reached out and touched my forehead, and suddenly everything went white. I felt myself being pulled apart, my mind shattered by the sheer force of Dr. Patel's gaze. I saw visions of horror beyond comprehension, images that seared themselves into my brain like branding irons. I heard whispers in my ear, tempting me with forbidden knowledge and ancient secrets. I stumbled forward, my legs shaking beneath me. The world around me was dissolving like a painting in the rain. Colors blended together, sounds merged into a cacophony of terror. And then everything went black. I woke up to find myself back in the twisted realm, standing before Dr. Patel once more. She smiled at me, her eyes glinting with malevolent intent. "Welcome," she said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "You're ready for the final test." I knew that I was doomed. I had seen too much, experienced too much. There was no escape from this twisted world of madness. And yet, I felt a sense of calm wash over me, a sense of resignation. I was ready to face whatever lay ahead, for I knew that I would never be free.